There is a power within you that moves mountains, parts seas, and brings forth realities from the invisible. This power does not speak in thunder, it whispers in silence. It does not announce its miracles, it performs them quietly in the stillness of faith. When you cease to complain about what you see and stop explaining what you do not understand, that power begins to move through you freely. It does not need your noise, your struggle, or your reasoning. It only needs your stillness, your trust, your unwavering knowing that all is already done. The greatest miracles are born in silence, not in chaos. The seed breaks open in the darkness of the soil, not under the noise of the world. The transformation of your life begins in the unseen, not in the explanations you give to others. Every time you complain, you reinforce the reality you wish to change. Every time you explain, you give energy to the very condition you want to be free from. But when you become still, utterly silent in mind and speech, something sacred begins to take shape within you. You start to feel the quiet confidence of one who knows the outcome is already decided. The world teaches you to fight, to argue, to justify yourself, to explain your worth to those who cannot see it. Yet the creative power within does not respond to explanations. It responds to belief. You do not need to convince others of what you are becoming. You do not even need to convince yourself with words. You need only to be it, quietly, inwardly, in the secret chamber of your imagination. The unseen world hears your silence more loudly than your shouts. When you stop explaining, you step into your authority. When you stop complaining, you step into your power. The silent mind becomes a channel for divine ideas. The still heart becomes a garden where miracles bloom effortlessly. The noise of complaint shuts the door to abundance. The calm of trust opens it wide. When you look at life through the eyes of gratitude, when you stop resisting what is, the energy that creates worlds begins to rearrange circumstances on your behalf. Do not complain about delays. They are not denials. Do not explain the journey. It is unfolding in perfection. Every appearance of setback is only the movement of the unseen aligning with your desire. The moment you choose to rest in silence instead of reaction, you rise above the world of appearances. You begin to see that nothing is ever against you. Life responds to the vibration of your inner stillness. In silence, you discover your creative center, the place where thought becomes form. Every miracle that has ever unfolded began as an idea quietly held in the mind. The unseen becomes seen not through constant effort, but through calm assurance. It is not your many words that create. It is your inner acceptance of what already is. When you claim something in consciousness and remain silent, refusing to contradict it with complaint or doubt, you set into motion an invisible law that must fulfill your belief. Those who live in silence are not passive. They are powerful. They have found the secret chamber where all outcomes are shaped. They no longer beg, they no longer justify, they no longer explain. They simply know. Their knowing becomes a magnet that draws the desired condition from the unseen. The world may call it coincidence, luck, or miracle, but it is none of these. It is law operating in silence. You are not here to complain about circumstances. You are here to transform them. You are not here to explain your faith. You are here to embody it. Every word of complaint ties you to limitation. Every explanation drains the sacred energy of your conviction. Let silence speak for you. Let your peace become your proof. When you resist the urge to defend yourself, you declare your independence from the opinions of others. When you refuse to complain, You declare your mastery over the conditions of life. You stand as one who knows that the unseen power within governs all visible things. The stillness you hold becomes the foundation upon which the impossible becomes inevitable. The greatest creators of all time have known this secret. Creation happens in silence. You do not need to announce your intention to the world. You do not need to convince anyone of your worthiness. The only conversation that matters is the one you have in the stillness of your mind with your own imagination. There, in that private sanctuary, you affirm what is true and let the rest fall away. Do not explain why you are believing for something higher. Simply believe. Do not complain about what you have, bless it. Gratitude in silence multiplies everything it touches. Every time you choose gratitude over complaint, you ascend to a higher frequency where miracles are natural. Every time you choose stillness over explanation, you align yourself with the quiet rhythm of divine order. You cannot hear the music of the infinite while you are busy complaining about the noise of the world. Silence is the bridge to understanding. Silence is the womb of creation. When you trust the silence, you no longer feel the need to prove, to defend, to justify. You live from the awareness that what is meant for you is already yours in the invisible. Your task is not to explain it, it is to accept it. If you could only remain quiet within, refusing to argue with appearances, the outer world would reshape itself in harmony with your inner conviction. The power that creates galaxies does not argue. It simply is. It does not justify. It simply expresses. You, too, can live from that same divine confidence. You can let go of all the noise that tells you to do more, to say more, to prove more. Simply be still and know that the power within you is greater than any condition outside you. Every complaint is a prayer for what you do not want. Every explanation is a confession of doubt. But silence is faith in motion. When you trust the silence, you hand your desire over to the unseen, knowing it will return fulfilled. This is how miracles are born, not through striving or pleading, but through quiet conviction. The silence within you is not empty, it is full of life. It is the meeting place of heaven and earth, the point where thought becomes form. When you honor that silence, when you resist the urge to complain or explain, you stand at the threshold of manifestation. You begin to see that everything unfolds in divine timing, that nothing is ever lost, that every seeming delay is preparing the perfect outcome. There is no need to convince anyone of your vision. Those who understand will see it in time. Those who doubt will fall away. Keep your faith in silence, nurture it in stillness, and watch the unseen move mountains for you. Do not talk about your miracle, live it. Do not explain your transformation, embody it. The silent ones change the world, not through noise, but through knowing. When you learn to rest in the quiet, life begins to answer in whispers of opportunity, alignment, and grace. You become magnetic without effort, radiant without explanation. You begin to understand that silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of power. It is the still voice of creation saying, "Be still and know that it is done." So hold your peace. Do not complain. Do not explain. Let the silence speak through you. Let the invisible work for you. And in that sacred quiet, you will witness miracles. Quiet, effortless, inevitable. Miracles that only silence can bring. In the quiet, you begin to understand that life itself is not a struggle, but a flow. You see that every complaint you once spoke came from fear, and every explanation you once offered came from doubt. Fear demands attention. Faith requires none. Doubt argues. Truth simply is. The moment you stop trying to make others see your vision, that vision begins to materialize effortlessly. You realize that silence is not weakness, it is supreme strength. The strength of one who knows that all things are already moving in their favor. When you stop explaining, the world stops questioning you. The energy you once wasted in justification begins to fuel your creation. You no longer scatter your power in words, you concentrate it in awareness. Every complaint you release is like cutting a thread that tied you to limitation. Every explanation you withhold deepens your connection to divine certainty. Silence is not emptiness, it is creative potency condensed, waiting to unfold into form. Imagine standing before a field at dawn. There is no noise, no movement, just still air and infinite possibility. That is what the mind becomes when you rest in silence. In that space, unseen forces begin to stir. The circumstances rearrange themselves, opportunities appear, people shift, and events conspire to bring your desire into being. You do not need to tell anyone what you are doing. The moment you believe quietly, creation begins. The world teaches you to speak your fears, to voice your frustrations, to seek validation through words. But the universe listens not to noise, it listens to vibration. When you complain, your vibration declares lack. When you explain, it declares uncertainty. But when you are silent, holding a feeling of gratitude and completion, your vibration declares fulfillment. And fulfillment always attracts its own reflection. Silence is the language of creation. It is the stillness before the storm of manifestation. It is the pause between breaths where infinite possibilities gather their strength. You do not plant a seed and then dig it up every day to check its progress. You trust the unseen work of the soil. In the same way, you do not need to keep speaking about your desires. Trust the unseen work of the silence within you. The soil of your mind is always fertile. What you plant there in silence must grow. When you stop trying to convince others, something miraculous happens. You convince yourself. Your faith becomes solid because it no longer depends on external approval. You no longer seek confirmation. You are the confirmation. The world will eventually mirror your inner conviction, but it will do so only when your conviction no longer depends on the world. That is the paradox of silence. It withdraws your energy from appearances so that appearances can change. There is immense power in the refusal to react. When others complain and you remain silent, you hold your vibration above the noise. When others demand explanations and you remain centered, you declare that your truth is not up for debate. Silence is not passive, it is assertive in the most divine way. It declares, I know. It says without words, it is done. To live in silence is not to withdraw from life, but to master it. It is to walk through noise without being moved by it. It is to hear the chatter of the world and yet remain tuned to the still, calm frequency of your own knowing. Every master of creation has learned to be silent, not out of fear of judgment, but out of understanding that true creation happens in the unseen. You cannot hear your intuition while you are explaining your fears. You cannot feel divine guidance while you are complaining about the process. The voice of intuition speaks softly, it is drowned by noise. Only when you quiet your inner commentary do you begin to hear the gentle nudges that lead you exactly where you need to go. Complaints close your ears, silence opens your heart. Life is not asking you to explain why you deserve your desires. Life already knows your worth. It is only waiting for you to stop resisting what is already yours. Every explanation you give to others is an attempt to justify your right to receive. But you were born deserving. You were created worthy. There is no need to prove what has always been true. When you understand this, silence becomes your natural state. The miracle of silence is that it connects you directly to Source. In silence, you touch the timeless realm where all things are already complete. You no longer chase after your desires. They are drawn to you. You no longer beg life for what you want. You recognize that life has already given it. In silence, you step into the eternal now, the space where creation begins and ends simultaneously. Consider how nature operates. The sun does not explain its light, it simply shines. The stars do not complain about darkness, they illuminate it. The river does not explain its flow, it moves with purpose. The same intelligence that moves the stars moves through you. It does not need your explanations or your complaints. It needs your trust. The silence you hold aligns you with this natural rhythm of creation. You will notice that when you stop complaining, your energy becomes lighter. The heaviness of resistance begins to dissolve. Complaints are like anchors that keep you tied to the past. Silence cuts the rope. Every time you choose silence over frustration, you lift your frequency closer to the realm where miracles live. It is not your effort that attracts them, it is your peace. The mind loves to speak, to analyze, to explain everything, but the heart knows in silence. When you begin to live from the heart, you stop needing to make sense of every detail. You stop explaining the how. You simply feel the truth of what is. That feeling is faith, and faith does not shout. It whispers. When you face a situation that seems unmovable, resist the urge to complain. Resist the urge to explain why it cannot change. Instead, withdraw into the quiet and see the situation as already transformed. The silence of your mind becomes the canvas on which the new reality paints itself. Every word of complaint muddies that canvas. Every moment of silence clears it. There is no need to announce your transformation. The world will see it when the time comes. The flower does not explain its bloom, it simply unfolds. The caterpillar does not complain about the cocoon. It becomes still and lets the metamorphosis happen. The same process unfolds within you. In your stillness, the old dissolves and the new emerges. Miracles do not respond to argument. They respond to alignment. You align not by talking, but by being. You become what you desire in silence long before you see it in form. Words often get in the way because they are rooted in effort. Silence is effortless, and creation is an effortless act. When you allow silence to guide you, life begins to unfold with a grace that defies explanation. Do not fear the quiet. Many avoid it because it exposes their thoughts. But that is its purpose, to show you what you are creating unconsciously. When you enter silence with awareness, you begin to notice the patterns of complaint, the subtle need to justify. And as you watch them without judgment, they dissolve. In that moment, you step into pure potential. You become one with the creative silence that birthed the universe. There is a kind of strength that can only be built in solitude. When you stop explaining your vision to those who cannot see it, you preserve its power. The seed of your desire must be protected from the winds of doubt. Silence is its shelter. Speak of your vision only to yourself, and even then, not in words but in feelings. Feel it real. Let that feeling become your silent song, your secret affirmation. Every complaint you voice sends out the message, I do not have. Every explanation says, I am uncertain, but silence says, it is done. And the universe echoes back, so be it. This is why miracles happen in silence, because silence holds no resistance, no contradiction. It is pure belief without interference. When you stop needing to explain, you become untouchable. You no longer react to misunderstanding or judgment. You realize that others' perceptions do not define your reality. In silence, you rest in your own truth. You let the results speak for you. And when they do, you will see that your quiet faith was louder than any defense you could have spoken. The energy of complaint is separation. It says, this should not be happening. The energy of silence is unity. It says, even this is working for my good. That shift in perspective opens the door to divine rearrangement. What once seemed against you begins to serve you. The delay becomes preparation. The detour becomes direction. And the obstacle becomes opportunity. All because you stopped fighting with words and started trusting in silence. Every miracle has a moment before it appears, a sacred pause where nothing seems to be happening. That pause is not emptiness, it is the gathering of unseen power. Most people interrupt it with doubt, fear, and complaint. But those who remain silent through the waiting discover that silence itself was the bridge between desire and fulfillment. You are never ignored by life. You are always answered in kind. If you speak of lack, life reflects lack. If you speak of fear, life reflects fear. But if you rest in silence, holding a quiet knowing of abundance, life reflects that stillness back as peace, opportunities, and synchronicities. Silence is the ultimate prayer because it says, I already have. Do not underestimate the power of your still mind. One silent, unwavering thought of conviction outweighs 1,000 spoken prayers of doubt. When you know something within and refuse to contradict it outwardly, the universe bends to your belief. The silence becomes alive with movement, arranging every detail in perfect order. You may not see it at first, but soon the invisible will solidify into visible form. The path to mastery is not found in words, it is found in quiet awareness. When you stop complaining, you begin observing. When you stop explaining, you begin understanding. Silence gives you eyes to see the truth beneath appearances. You realize that nothing ever goes wrong, it only goes unseen. The silence allows you to perceive the perfection that was there all along. Let your peace be your protest. Let your silence be your answer. You do not owe the world an explanation for your belief in miracles. Miracles are the natural outcome of your alignment with truth. They require no advertisement, no justification, no noise. They unfold quietly like dawn breaking after a long night, inevitable and serene. Even now, life is working for you in silence. The conversations you cannot hear, the movements you cannot see, the alignments happening behind the veil, all are part of your unfolding. Trust this quiet orchestration. Do not disturb it with complaint. Do not dilute it with explanation. Rest in the knowing that what you have imagined in silence will manifest in form. And when it does, when the miracle appears as if from nowhere, you will smile, not in surprise, but in recognition. You will remember the stillness where it began, the silence where you first believed, the quiet space where you let go of all noise. That is where the power lies, in the silence that neither complains nor explains, but simply creates. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when words lose their value. You reach the point where talking about faith is no longer enough. You must become faith itself. That becoming happens not through endless affirmations or explanations, but through deep, unshakable silence. The kind of silence that holds no argument, no defense, no justification. It is not the silence of suppression, but the silence of mastery. It is the stillness of one who knows that the unseen has already answered, that the invisible has already taken form, and that nothing remains to be proven. This silence is not the absence of life, it is the pulse of life itself. It is the heartbeat of creation that never ceases. When you quiet the mind and withdraw from the noise of complaint, you begin to feel that pulse beating in harmony with your own being. You realize that all along, the universe was not waiting for your struggle or your speech. It was waiting for your surrender. The moment you release the need to explain your path, the path becomes clear. The moment you stop complaining about your conditions, they begin to transform. The universe operates in silence. The earth spins without announcement. The stars burn without speech. The seasons change without demand. Everything powerful moves quietly. In that same way, the greatest transformations in your life unfold unseen, unheard in silence. When you stop fighting against appearances and simply hold a feeling of peace, the law of life begins to rearrange everything around that vibration. That is why those who are silent in faith always witness miracles. They are tuned to the frequency where creation happens. There is a sacred energy in restraint. Every time you resist the temptation to explain your vision to someone who cannot understand, you preserve your power. Every time you withhold a complaint when things appear slow, you strengthen your faith. The seed that lies buried in the soil does not complain about the darkness. It knows the darkness is its womb. So too must you understand that silence is the soil where your destiny grows. The deeper you sink into it, the higher your manifestation will rise. When you complain, you vibrate with the problem. When you explain, you vibrate with uncertainty. But when you are silent, holding steady in conviction, you vibrate with fulfillment. And fulfillment must attract its likeness. Life mirrors the state of your being, not the sound of your words. You can speak abundance endlessly and still live in lack if your heart is filled with complaint. But a single moment of quiet, knowing that you already have all you need, will open doors no words could ever open. To stop complaining is not to ignore life's challenges, it is to see through them. It is to recognize that everything you experience is a reflection of your own consciousness. Complaining keeps you bound to the surface. Silence takes you to the source. It draws your awareness back into the center, where all power resides. In that center, you realize that nothing external ever needs to change for you to feel peace. Peace itself is the change. And once peace is established within, the outer world must conform to it. Explanation is the language of fear. Silence is the language of certainty. When you feel the need to explain your choices, your dreams, your timing, it means you still seek validation from others. But creation does not need an audience, it needs alignment. Those who truly know do not talk about knowing, they radiate it. Their presence itself becomes an explanation without words. When you enter a room anchored in that silent confidence, life begins to respond differently to you. People sense something unspoken, something powerful, something sure. It is in this quiet space that miracles begin their work. A miracle never announces itself. It arrives uninvited, unexpected, in perfect timing. It emerges not from noise, but from stillness. The very act of being still creates a magnetic field around you, you that draws the right circumstances, people, and opportunities. In your silence, you are communicating with the unseen. Every quiet thought, every word unspoken but felt, every image held in faith is a command to the invisible forces that shape your life. The world around you is filled with sound, but creation listens only to vibration. It is not the volume of your prayers that moves mountains. It is the silence between them. It is not the force of your arguments that changes lives. It is the stillness of your example. The most profound transformation happens not when you talk about change, but when you quietly embody it. Words are the echo, silence is the source. In the stillness of your being, you begin to hear what cannot be heard with the physical ear. You sense the subtle whisper of divine guidance. You receive ideas without effort, inspiration without searching, answers without asking. Silence opens the channel to the infinite mind. The moment you stop complaining about not knowing what to do, wisdom begins to flow. The moment you stop explaining why something isn't possible, possibility reveals itself. Silence is the key that unlocks every closed door. You may find that people question your quietness. They may ask why you no longer share your struggles, why you do not defend your choices, why you seem detached. But you will know within yourself that silence is your sanctuary. You no longer need to waste energy convincing the world. You have turned inward where real creation happens. You understand that silence is not withdrawal. It is direction. It is not weakness. It is wisdom. You do not need to speak your alignment. You live it. There will be moments when you are tempted to complain, to justify, to explain your stillness to those who misunderstand. Resist it. Keep your silence sacred. Let your results speak for you. The harvest will always make the planting clear. You do not see the farmer arguing with the soil. He simply plants, waits, and trusts the season. So must you plant your desires in the soil of silence and allow divine timing to bring them forth. The moment you stop disturbing the soil with your words, the roots of manifestation begin to grow. When you walk through challenges, remain inwardly silent. It is easy to complain when things seem unfair, but every complaint strengthens the illusion of separation. Silence dissolves that illusion. It aligns you with the higher truth that all is unfolding exactly as it should. You are never a victim of circumstance, you are the cause of it. The silence teaches you this. It reveals that the external is not an enemy to conquer, but a mirror to understand. When you understand, you no longer fight, you transform. The miracle of silence is that it heals the heart. Every complaint is an admission of distrust in the intelligence of life. But silence says, I trust. That trust opens the door for divine order to flow through you. Healing does not always come in the form of visible change first. It comes as a deep inner peace that says, it is already done. When you reach that level of peace, physical changes naturally follow. The body, the environment, the relationships, all begin to reorganize themselves in harmony with your inner stillness. When you stop explaining yourself, you step into true authenticity. You stop living for the approval of others and start living from the approval of your own soul. You no longer shape your words to fit the expectations of the world. You shape your world through the quiet conviction of your thoughts. The need to explain is born from a lack of self-trust. The moment you realize you are the creator, that need vanishes. The universe does not explain why it rises each morning. It simply does. The ocean does not justify its tides. It simply moves. You two are meant to flow silently, powerfully, effortlessly. Silence also protects your energy. Every explanation leaks power. Every complaint leaks focus. The one who remains silent gathers all their energy inward, and from that concentration comes creative power. That is why so many seek solitude. It is not loneliness, it is power gathering. When you become comfortable with your own silence, you discover that you are never alone. The divine presence fills the space once occupied by noise. Many think that silence is inaction, But it is the highest form of action. It is invisible movement. When you are silent, you are allowing the unseen to work through you. You may appear still, but beneath the surface, everything is in motion. The same way a seed appears lifeless in the soil, yet within it a whole forest is awakening. That is how your silence works. It is creative stillness, the womb of manifestation. There is also a deep humility in silence. To stop complaining is to surrender the illusion of control. To stop explaining is to surrender the need to be right. In that surrender, you find freedom. You realize that you are not here to control life, but to align with it. The silence teaches you how to listen, how to move with the rhythm of the unseen. You stop forcing outcomes and begin allowing them. And in that allowing, miracles unfold naturally, gracefully, effortlessly. You will notice that the quieter you become, the more powerful your presence feels. People will be drawn to you without knowing why. It is not your words that attract them, it is your vibration. Silence refines that vibration. It makes you magnetic, peaceful, radiant. You do not need to seek recognition or validation. The world begins to recognize something divine within you. You become the embodiment of calm certainty. Silence also sharpens your perception. In the absence of words, you begin to see. You notice the subtle movements of life, the hidden connections, the divine patterns. You understand that everything is working together, even the things that once seemed chaotic. The silence gives you vision, the ability to discern the truth beneath appearances. You no longer rush to react, you respond from awareness. That awareness is the birthplace of mastery. In silence, time itself seems to change. The pressure of deadlines and expectations dissolves. You begin to live in the eternal now. You stop complaining about the past because you realize it no longer exists. You stop explaining the future because it has not yet arrived. You rest in the infinite present, and in that presence, all things are possible. There is no effort in silence, only ease. Creation was never meant to be forced, it was meant to flow. The trees grow without sound, the sun shines without speech, and the flowers bloom without noise. You too are part of that same effortless unfolding. When you stop resisting with complaints and explaining with fear, you fall back into that natural rhythm. You align with the creative silence that sustains all existence. Every miracle you have ever received came from a moment of surrender. Perhaps you did not realize it at the time, but it was when you stopped struggling, stopped arguing, stopped trying to make sense of everything. That's when the breakthrough came. The silence you fell into opened the door. And even now, every future miracle waits for that same silence within you to open again. Let your silence be your faith. Let your quietness be your declaration. You do not need to tell the world that you believe. The results will reveal it. You do not need to explain your process. The manifestation will explain it for you. Stay silent, stay centered, and trust that the unseen is working in your favor. For in truth, all creation begins and ends in silence, and it is within that silence that miracles are born. So be still and remember, the power that shapes worlds listens not to your noise, but to your knowing. You were never meant to beg for your blessings or explain your worth to anyone. The universe is not moved by your complaints, it is moved by your quiet certainty. Let your silence declare your faith. Let your peace speak louder than your words. When you no longer need to defend what you believe, when you no longer resist what appears, you become one with the creative force that makes all things new. Miracles are not loud, they do not arrive with thunder. They bloom softly, silently in the heart that trusts without question. Stop complaining, stop explaining. Stand still in your truth and watch the impossible unfold before your eyes. Quietly, perfectly, inevitably.